Welcome to the Happy Doc, the voice of fulfilled physicians. This show is about bringing inspirational, creative, successful, and happy health professionals to you. Get ready to learn how you can be a happy doctor too. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited for our next guest, and that is Dr. Wendell Cole. At the time I interviewed him, he was a fourth-year medical student, but now he is matched into his preferred program, and he is going into orthopedic surgery. And I want to send him a congratulations because that's awesome. This conversation is really great. We learn a lot about Wendell, and he is a man on a mission. He released a book as a medical student, and it's called How to Breeze Through Medical School While Crushing Your Exams. He is a very driven person. We learn about what drives him. We learn about the importance of humility. And we learn about a mindset that I really appreciate from him, which is, this is a quote, "I never know what I can learn from who. I want to speak with different people who are successful in different areas, and how do they overcome obstacles. I want to help other people as well as myself. New technology, robots, learning, you can learn from anybody." He has a podcast called Convos with Cole. So he's in orthopedic surgery residency. He's already written a book, and he has a podcast. An amazing inspiration. I want you guys to check out his book on Amazon. Again, that's How to Breeze Through Medical School While Crushing Your Exams. Check out his podcast, Convos with Cole. Check out his website, iamdrcole.com, iamdrcole.com. And also, I forgot to mention, he was recently on the show The Proposal. So this guy does it all. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Taylor Braun, and welcome to another episode of the Happy Doc. I'm really excited for our next guest, Wendell Cole. He is currently finishing up at Morehouse School of Medicine, and he matched into orthopedic surgery. That's awesome. Thank you so much for being with us, man.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me, man. Glad to be here and talk to them. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. So, right off the bat, you just you're finishing up medical school, which is amazing. And in terms of, what got you started, what I love to ask is what got you started into this whole process in the first place. So what do you think that was for you?
Yeah, funny question you say that is, I was actually cleaning out my room the other day, and below my bed, I found a journal that I used to write in when I was like a kid, when I was probably about 8, 9, 10 years old. Sections, it's prompts that kind of tell you what you shouldn't say. And in one of the sections, it said, "What do I want to be when I grow up?" And I looked and I wrote a doctor. And then I was like, wow, that's crazy how it actually happened. And so I guess, subconsciously or when I was a kid, I kind of knew that I wanted to go on that route. But honestly, what got me interested in medicine was the show House. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yeah.
But Gregory House. And I just love the show. And, I'll just sit there and watch it a lot of the times, and I just found it intriguing. And I really like sports as well. So I was always trying to think of what I could do, to combine the two. And eventually I played sports, and I ended up actually tearing my ACL. I had to get surgery on that. And the story behind that is I was a person that I was really active. I was really physically active. I didn't really let out many emotions talking, right? So when I got this injury, it's almost like a part of my self-expression was gone, right? Because I couldn't really work out. I couldn't really exercise. I couldn't really do what I wanted to do. And getting that surgery kind of brought it back. It gave me a sense of my self-expression, because now I could run again, and now I could do all these other different things. And ever since then, not to be like the stereotypical, I tore my ACL, now I want to do orthopedic surgery guy, but I always wanted to give somebody else that same sense of freedom. And, from there, I just kind of kept getting interested in medicine, and ended up getting into medical school. And now I'm about to start residency in about a month or so here. So that's kind of the shorter version of what brought me to medicine, and then more specifically what brought me to orthopedics.
That's awesome, man. So, I love, your story with the athletic background, by the way. I was also an athlete. What sport did you play?
So I played football and I ran track.
Awesome, man. So yeah, I actually competed in gymnastics, and I did that my whole life. So very different sport, but totally get. Me and you would connect on this in terms of being physical and expressing yourself physically. Jokingly, right. I would always tell people when I was studying for boards, I got in the best shape of my life because when I get stressed, I work out. When I get stressed, I just have to work out. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying because it's like it's a moment of peace, for better or for worse. But it's a moment where you're just kind of focused on one thing and you're just doing that. Yeah. And much props to you for doing gymnastics. I always say people that do gymnastics are the best athletes out of everybody because you have the body strength to do many different things, and you can do things with your body that a lot of other people can't do. So I actually heard, I forgot what I was listening to. It might have been something with MMA, but somebody said if you put all the different athletes in a room, somebody plays football, somebody plays soccer, baseball, and you put a gymnast, the person that will be best at all of the sports in general will be the gymnast. So again, much props to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I actually remember that conversation. It's I think it was with one of the interviews with George St. Pierre.
Yeah, man, exactly. That's exactly who it is.
Yeah, it was with GSP because he was using gymnastics training as part of his MMA training, and so they were talking about that. Yeah. Thank you. No, I appreciate it. It's a very tough sport, but honestly, different people have different body types, and their system works in different ways. I mean, for you, probably track and football really matched with your skill set. So,
right.
Everyone has their own thing, but that's awesome, man. So when I think about, coming back to ortho for a second, when I think about orthopedic surgery, it's definitely one of the most competitive fields in a lot of ways. Like, most people need to have research. Most people obviously have to do well on their boards. And that doesn't come easy. So I would love, especially for my medical student listeners, what do you think are some habits and skills you built that, and especially I know we talked about this before, you have a book coming out, to talk about this. What are some of the skills or habits or things that you really developed that you think allowed you to succeed in that way?
I would say one of the things is working hard, right? Is showing up earlier than everybody else and then leaving later than everybody else, and really being somebody that's there to learn, and you know that you don't know everything, right? It's a person that knows that knows that he knows everything that's stifled, but the person that doesn't know that they know everything, they always tend to have a lot to learn. So I definitely believe that was one of the things, and also not being afraid to speak to people, and not being afraid to open my mouth and say, hey, I'm interested in this, or, just say, hey, my name is that, because I feel like a lot of things that we get in life can be social, right? Because a lot of times, even when you get a job, it's sometimes because you know somebody that knows somebody. Like the first job I got because I knew somebody in that field and they recommended me. So me being able to open my mouth and kind of put it out to the universe that, hey, this is a field that I want to get into. At my school, we don't have an orthopedic surgery program. So pretty much I had to go out and seek all the different tools and all the different, pretty much all different things for orthopedics. So for me, it was not being afraid to talk to anybody and just kind of having a hunger to just go out and get it, Just because it's competitive does not mean that it can't be done, right? Just because if somebody else has done it, you can do it too. At the end of the day, we're all human. Yeah. And if somebody else can done it, then if somebody else has done it, then you can do it too. And if somebody else hasn't done it, you can be the first person to do it. Yeah. So to me, it's nothing is impossible. The vision, not the vision. The sky's not the limit. The limit is your vision, right? It's pretty much how far you can see yourself. So for me, I kind of just saw myself in where I'm at right now. When I came into med school, I saw where I was at right now, and I just had to align to certain things in order to make it actually happen. So I would say those are probably the three things that I would say pretty much helped me throughout, my medical school career, and will probably help me out throughout residency as well.
I love that. Yeah. So you mentioned, kind of summarize a couple of things. So you mentioned humility, like being humble enough just to admit that you don't know stuff.
because that mindset's really big. And I think that's a big issue for a lot of people because they did really well in college and they probably did well before. And then so they feel like they should, like almost like, oh, I'm in medical school, I should know everything. And then that really, like what you said, such a good point, was stifling, because then if you don't ask the questions because you want to act like you know everything, you actually then never learn. So I think that's such a good point, and that's something I personally struggle with, definitely on the humility part sometimes. So I love that you mentioned that. Number 2 was I really liked how you said, like, tell people you're interested in this thing. I've noticed, for better or worse, like especially with rotations, if I know a student is interested in my field when I'm working with them, or if you're on a surgery rotation, you say I want to do surgery, that doctor tends to, for better or worse, favor that student, and they'll probably teach you more. You know what I'm saying? And there's like a little bit of this bias, unfortunately, because you're like, I want to do this. And then they know you want to do it. So then they feed you more good stuff. So I think there's
it's almost like me feeding my own ego, right? Because if I'm somebody and, like, for example, I'm a resident and there's somebody else that's a med student that's saying he wants to do exactly what I'm doing. And it's like, I'll feel better deep down if I help them get to the same point where I'm at. Right. So I'll naturally try to invest more in that person. So I totally agree. I think putting it out there is the best way to go, and letting people know that you're interested in, just for the exact same reason that you just said, that if somebody knows you're interested, even if it's unconsciously, but they will typically call you to do procedures, call you to go see a patient, again, for better or for worse, because it could mean you're staying a little bit later because that doctor likes you and wants you to really be around them. But I really think that's a great way to go.
Sure. What you just said was super valuable. And then the connections too, right? Like you're saying, you put yourself out there, you tell them you want this, and then people will help you. People like helping people, especially in the medical field. There's something good that makes, you feel good when you were part of that journey. All those tips you said, like, that's a recipe for success. So I definitely like that. And speaking of success and kind of what you're building, already, from your perspective, you've built a podcast, Convos with Cole, right? Which I want us to touch on. And then you also want to publish this book that you're working on. And, even for me, I'm really ambitious, but you're really, taking on a lot. Ortho residency, you want to publish a book, you have your podcast. What do you think, has allowed you, or how do you think you're able to kind of do this? Like, what drives you in that way?
What drives me in that way? I guess growing up, how I grew up, right? I wasn't the most privileged family. I've seen my parents struggle from paycheck to paycheck. I've seen them, I've seen the ups and I've seen the downs, right? And I guess in a sense, it would almost be fear of going back down. It would be the fear of not the fear of failure, but the fear of going back to a place where or a lifestyle that I don't want to live, right? It's the fear of that, and also the want of me to help other people in a way that I feed my own. I'm not to say ego, but in the fact that I'll feel more significant because I've also helped somebody else's life.
Sure.
Those are kind of the two things that I would say keep me going, right? Yeah. Because for me, it's not really about how much money you make at the end of the day. I actually saw this thing recently, and I want to get one. And what this guy did is he had a huge picture up on his wall in his room, and it had his tombstone. So it had the day that he was born, and it had the dash, and it had a question mark at the end. And what that does to me is that makes me think, well, what am I doing every day of my life? Because I don't know when this is going to end, right? Sure. We've all been through rotations. I've seen people that are 17 years old die. I've seen a lot in surgery, and we don't know when this is going to end. So my thing is, how do I make what I'm doing now impact other people? How do I make what I do in between those two dates actually matter? And I would say that that is the thing that keeps me going, or that keeps me wanting to do things, and it keeps me not afraid to go ahead and try this out while I'm doing this. It's not being afraid to kind of live within the box, but kind of just do what you want to do. So that would be that'd be my answer to that.
I love that. No, that's awesome, man. And totally with you. You said you kind of came from not the best upbringing, in situationally, and you wanted to get out of that. And then also like just the drive to kind of do what you want. A lot of people, especially in the medical field, don't have that courage. Do you feel like you've always had that courage, or was there a moment that you're like, I have to go for it? Was there a shift, or was it kind of always within you think?
I would say that it's been mostly always within me. As a kid, I would have ideas like, oh, I'm going to start a clothing line, and I'd buy a whole bunch of T-shirts on wholesale and start like putting designs on them. Or when I was in undergrad, I did this startup business. So I actually came into medical school like juggling a startup business with medical school. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's kind of been something that I've always had an interest in, or had an interest in doing. So I would say that it's been with me for a while, man. I think I'll just this is just the way I go. I just can't do one thing.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. And I love creators. I love people that, push the boundaries of themselves. And the cool thing, you kind of mentioned it before, is it's not just about you. You really do want to help people. That's why you went to the medical field. And, let's bring it back to kind of the podcasting and the book you're creating. These are other avenues for you to help in a big way, right? So, Convos with Cole, and the website's convoswithcole.com, so people can kind of reach you in that way. What is the kind of topic, and what do you guys, what's your, what are your goals in those conversations?
See, my thing is I never know what I can learn from who, right? I don't know what I can learn from somebody that runs a business versus somebody that is on radio versus somebody that does like spiritual things, right? So my whole thing behind Convos with Cole is I wanted to speak with different people that were successful in their respective areas and find out what made them successful, like what drove them, where they came from, how did they overcome those obstacles that were in their way, and what are some things that people can do right now that can help make their life better in any type of way. And it's just with that and wanting to record those conversations to help other people as well as help myself, because a lot of the things that I speak about, I actually just curiously want to know about myself. Like, for example, I want to learn about the new technology that's coming in the future with the robots and where that would go. So I'm going to find somebody that to speak on that and kind of have that conversation with. And that just all came about for just learning. You can learn from anybody, that I feel like, and a lot of the times it can kind of be like taboo in medicine to say, hey, I'm doing something else besides medicine, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, I have this other thing going on, or speaking to other people without medicine. But when you only speak to one type of person, you only get one type of a viewpoint. Yeah. And the thing is, especially us as being doctors, we have to be able to see where other people are coming from and see how, and get in their world and see where they're coming from. And that's theoretically my goal with every person that I interview. I want to get in their world and see where they come from and see how they make decisions and see how I can apply some of those same things to my life.
I love that. And I want to highlight that quote, like one of the quotes you said in there. He's like, you said, I can learn from anyone. Like, we're able to learn from anyone. And I think that perspective is so huge, because I think there's a lot of, like, especially when you think about doctors and like the stereotypical hierarchy, we feel like we're at the top of the food chain. And when we talk to nurses, I mean, it's not always true, right? But when you talk to nurses, or you talk to students, or you talk to your patients, or you're talking to someone else, it could be so easy to get stuck in this mindset that I know everything. And I love what you just said, because when you talk to these people in different fields and you get to speak to, any individual, you can take away something. So I think that's a really huge thing. And I think that perspective is going to take you so far, because you're constantly going to be learning. And so I really appreciate that. in your conversations,
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So in your conversation, I'm sure you've learned, you've learned a lot. If someone were to take a listen to, your podcast today, could you think of maybe like 1 or 2 episodes you'd love to like highlight for a starter?
So I did an interview session with this girl named Rashawn Ali. She's in the radio, she's on TV, and she's had her ups and downs and her struggles through life. And to me it was a really good interview because she talks about all the different struggles that she had in the mindset that she used to overcome these struggles. And she's also a great storyteller. And it was an episode that I love dearly, and that I just every once in a while I go back and listen to it just to pick up another gem that she said, and just be like, I'm going to use that today, So that's one of the episodes. Another episode, there's another one that I did with a woman named Andrea Lowell, and her story is a great story. She used to do Playboy, but now she switched her life around and she does like raw food nutrition. And again, another really great storyteller. But then at the end of the interview, we kind of got into some spiritual things and her views on life, and how we all are connected, and how she can say I love you to anybody and not feel like it's in any type of not provocative, but any type of other manner, like it can't be taken any type of way, because when she says it truly comes from a place of joy and from love. And that was one of the things that I really got from her episode, as well as you kind of have the power to take your own, you have the power to turn your entire life around, right? And help other people and be here for something that's bigger than yourself. So I would say probably Andrea Lau and Rashawn Ali. Those are 2 pretty good episodes that I would say that I really enjoyed.
Awesome. And I definitely am going to put those episodes also on our show notes for people to check out. And to, not completely switch gears here, but you're also going to be writing this book, which I'm personally very excited about. Who are you, writing this book for? It's for medical students, correct?
Yeah, so this book is pretty much completely for medical students, honestly. It's like how to breeze through med school while crushing your exams. And the reason I wrote this is because going through med school, so many things I didn't know, and so many things I found out that could have saved me hours and hours of time looking back at it. And the thing about that is the only thing that pretty much keeps us all equal, is time. We all have an infinite, not an infinite, we all have a finite amount of time. All those other things like money, etc., all those come and go. But the only thing that we all have that we can never get back once it's used is time. And I love being able to maximize my time and use my time for the things that I really want to do in life and the things that I enjoy doing. So my goal with this book is to ease people through med school, help them get through it a lot easier, tell them the things that I wish I would have known, as well as give them tangible things or actionable things that they can use and do that'll help save them time, that'll help make them score a higher grade on that exam, and that'll help make them get the residency spot that they wanted. So that's pretty much my goal with this book. Sure.
I love that. And I think, a big thing there is time that you mentioned, so much during that. It is so important because that shift from college to medical school, you realize really quick you lose a lot of time. I mean, you laugh there. You know how it is because in high school, you're like in high school, like I don't have time to do anything. I don't have time. And then in college, you're like I don't have time to do anything. I don't have time. And then you hit graduate school or medical school, and you're like I really don't have time. And then that can compound even more going into residency. And so you really start to appreciate, and I love that you're going to be mentioning this, is how do you be extra efficient so you can really increase your ability to, be with your loved ones, hit the gym, enjoy yourself, all of those things that you really love. So I'm so happy that you're touching on that. Do you know when it's going to be coming out, or, are you still kind of in progress?
So my goal is to have it out there by mid-June. So before I start residency, I'm gonna put the put the book out there. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
That's amazing.
And quickly to touch on what you were just talking about is one thing I realized that when you're in medical school is that if you don't make time for the things you want to make time for now, more than likely you're not going to make time for it during residency. More than likely when you become a physician attending, you're probably not going to make time for it. So it's like the skills and the habits that you're developing while you're in med school are going to be the same ones that you're going to pretty much be developing throughout your life. So that's why it's important to know and to get that balance and to have the things that you really want to do and balance that between that and school, and then in the future that and your career and your job, and make sure that you actually have a happy life, right? Like
sure.
Happy doc.
That's awesome. I love it. Thank you so much. So, time I could have a whole episode about time. So I really love that we're talking about it. One thing that there's a few like topics that I absolutely love talking about, but one of them is energy. So for you, what are some things that after you've you're really exhausted or just that you want to kind of recoup, what are some things that for you really give you a lot of energy?
A lot of energy. I'm old school, man. I don't really drink coffee or anything, but I just do a cup of hot tea. I feel like that kind of re-energizes me. Maybe even going out to exercise. I think that helps me get back in the zone and kind of get all my neurons firing and kind of get my heart rate up there a little bit. Yeah. So I would say those two things are really good with getting my energy up. I'm trying to think of some more.
So out of curiosity, sorry to cut you off there, but out of curiosity, do you feel like podcasting or writing this book has given you like an extra bit of like motivation and energy besides just, going to school?
Yes. I mean, yes, and somewhat,
sure.
Because I tend sometimes, for example, right now I'm in my fourth year and I have a lot of time, right?
Sure.
And I'm not used to having a lot of time.
Right.
And so in writing this book, I might have been not necessarily lazier, but I hadn't before that really gotten to it like I should have. But in the same sense, it does give me energy because it's like I know at the end of this, I'm going to be able to put it out and people are going to get value from it and people are going to enjoy it because I've had a couple people like read the manuscripts beforehand. So in a sense, that does give me energy. In a sense, it's like, all right, cool. I have something to wake up and kind of get done for the day. I got something I can go ahead and do. Mm. It's like always something I can actually work on, which always is, it was always a great thing because it kind of keeps me going and keeps me moving. I don't want to be stagnant and just not doing anything.
Right. Well, that's great. So in terms of, fulfillment from your perspective, what are some things that, a student listening today, what are some things that maybe they could do to make themselves feel happier, more fulfilled in their position as a student?
Well, I think you kind of need to define what happiness means to you. What does it look like for you? What are the things that are important to you? For me, what's important to me is being there for my family, right? And waking up and being in the moment, literally just being in the moment is happiness to me. I'm not worrying about the future or what it holds. I'm not worrying about what happened in the past. Like I'm right here. Like I'm right here talking to you. There's nothing else going on in my world. And to me, just living carefree and being in the moment and just being grateful are all things that kind of help contribute to my overall happiness. And another tip or a trick that I did, even when I was going through rotations, I was going through say I'm going through a rough rotation. I was going through, for example, like OBGYN, and I'm up and it's like 4 or 5 in the morning and I'm walking to the hospital every day. Before I walk in the hospital or when I'm walking there, I look in the sky. I take a deep breath of air and I'd be like, man, I get to wake up today. I get to smell this air. I look up and be like, man, look at that moon in the sky. It looks beautiful right now. And I get to be here. I get to come here and people let me examine them. People trust me to that extent to let me not invade, but let me into their space. Like, I would just wake up and say something I'm so grateful for. Like, I'm grateful for the clothes that I have on or, you know, I'm grateful for the fact that I can do this. And I really think doing that helped me have my sanity and kept me happy, you know, and kept me fulfilled. I wasn't looking at things as a task. I was looking at everything like, oh, I'm so grateful I get to do this. It's just taking a time out of your day just to enjoy the little things. If you go outside, just take a second to turn and just look at the flowers and look at the contour, count how many flowers are there. Are there 5 stems, or, you know, however many petals there are? Look at the colors. Look at how the colors change on the flower, and just take a second just to observe all that. And, you know, it's just appreciating the little things in life. You know, appreciating the wind blowing on your face, and all those different things I think can help you be fulfilled, and it's kind of help you feel happy and help you appreciate everything and kind of live in the moment.
Yeah. And, you know, just to add on to this, you know, coming from the psychiatry perspective, a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression and sadness comes from thinking about the future or being concerned about the past. And your tip, right, of focusing on the flowers, looking at the petals, looking at the stems, what does that do? Which you're saying is focusing on now. And actually, a really great book if people are listening. You may have heard of it. Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. Great book. Really pulls you into that everything you have in your life was due to a decision you made in the now. Really impactful, and I love what you said there. The other thing you said there I really want to highlight for everyone listening is I get to. You said, I get to do this. I get to see patients. I get to wake up this morning. I get to look at the sky. All of that stuff that you said, that the spirit of it, it's the opposite of entitlement, which is, I deserve this. Why isn't it this way? You know? Yeah. Whereas I get to is more like based in reality, which is like you're just doing it and you're able to like experience that. That's really powerful. So, you know, even as I'm listening to, one of the things I you know, that I really appreciate about you is your mindset, and the way you think about the world is really fantastic. And so, you know, whether it's your book or it's your podcast, I know people are going to get so much from you because your mindset is very powerful. And I'm like really hearing that. So I appreciate you being with us. We've talked about a lot in this conversation. We got to discuss, you know, kind of your background story going into ortho, finishing up school. We got to talk about your podcast. We discussed the book that's coming out. We had a conversation about a lot of the like success mindset. I really do think that you have and has been really powerful. Is there any question or anything that you wanted to kind of discuss with the listeners that maybe I didn't touch on?
Let's see. I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you know what makes you happy? I know it seems like an elementary question, but do you know what makes you happy?
You know, it's funny. I've really spent a long time kind of learning about this stuff because, you know, one of my friends taught me that if you can name it, it has power. Okay. So when you can define something, you have power over it. So I think in terms of happiness, I really do think that something I learned, and actually I got it from one of Tony Robbins' speech, but I think it's really true. If you look at basic needs that everyone wants is certainty. He says there's 6 things, and I actually really agree with him. Certainty, we all want certainty in our lives, like making sure we have a home or whatever to come home to. We have food on the table. We want that certainty. But we also want uncertainty. The uncertainty of we want our lives to be kind of exciting and we don't know what's going to happen. We want love and connection. And then the number 4 on that is we want to have significance. And those are kind of like the base needs. But then the 2 ones that really make people fulfilled, and I'm only agreeing with Tony Robbins because from my experience, it's been true for me. It's growth and contribution, which are the 2 that are really big drivers for me. And if I know that I'm growing in some way, that gets me super excited. And I wouldn't say necessarily always happy because, you know, even though we're called the happy doc, I don't think being happy all the time is the best thing. because it's okay to feel a wide variety of emotions, but I feel like driven, and I can kind of be in a crappy state of mind sometimes, but still be driven and excited and pushing forward, which I'm sure you're going to agree with me. And then, so that would be one thing, from the growth aspect. And the other one is contribution, because we live in this world, this crazy world where I can't do this alone. You can't do this alone. We're talking on this conversation right now, looking at each other and kind of discussing these things. And when you make someone else feel good, there's something so special about that no one else can really describe, but it gives you that warmth. And those types of things, from the growth and the contribution aspect, I think those are the things that really get me excited and fulfilled. And I want to be growing and contributing for the rest of my life. So that would be kind of my answer to that one.
Yeah, I love that, man. I really do. And I actually listen to Tony Robbins a lot too. I actually used to listen to him on my drive in the morning. But yeah, I totally agree with that 100%. I love it. Thank
you for asking me that question. I love that. Well, Wendell Cole, we've had you on. We've asked you lots of questions. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I know people are going to get a lot out of it. I mentioned kind of your website. This is a way for people to reach out to you, convoswithcole.com. Is there any way else that, listeners can reach out to you?
Yeah, I am on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All is I am Dr. Cole. So IAMDRCOLE. It is the same on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Feel free to send me a message to any one of those. I reply to messages typically within a day or two. So if anybody out there is interested in orthopedics or interested in just anything or just wants to talk about a little bit more in depth of what you heard from here, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to speak to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time, and take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Happy Doc Podcast, the voice of fulfilled physicians. If you enjoyed the episode, please drop us a like, comment, and share. Share us through the social media channels we have on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The handle is at Happy Doc Podcast. That's at Happy Doc Podcast. You can find our website at www.thehappydoc.com. Again, thank you so much for listening to the Happy Doc, the voice of fulfilled physicians.